At 6 in the morning, I opened my front door in sweatpants, one sock, and the kind of hair that made me look like I had lost a fight with my own pillow. Natalie Brooks was standing on my porch in last night's black dress. No coat, no makeup left except a little dark smudge under one eye. Her heels dangled from two fingers, and her bare feet were red from the cold concrete. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she looked at me and said, "I need you to not make a joke." That was when I knew something was wrong. Because Natalie and I had survived 15 years of friendship on jokes. Bad dates, broken water heaters, job interviews, funerals, her wedding, my failed engagement, her divorce papers, my unfortunate attempt at growing a beard. We had laughed through all of it. But that morning, she didn't look like she had come to laugh. She looked like she had come to finally stop lying. My name is Daniel Price. I'm 34 and I design kitchen layouts for a remodeling company in Portland, Oregon. It's not glamorous, but people need cabinets, and apparently I have strong opinions about drawer pulls. I live in a small blue house with a porch that leans slightly to the left, a coffee maker that sounds like it's threatening me, and a heart I had trained years ago not to want my best friend. Mostly. Natalie was 33, newly divorced, and still wearing the brave face everyone kept praising her for. You know the one. The smile that says, "I'm fine because if I'm not fine, everyone will get uncomfortable." She had been divorced for 4 months. Before that, she'd been married to a man named Ryan who treated affection like a coupon, only available on special occasions and always with restrictions. I never liked him. To be fair, I didn't like any man who made Natalie's laugh smaller, but I had stood beside her at that wedding in a gray suit and told myself that loving your best friend meant wanting her happiness, even if it came with a guy who shook your hand like he was testing fruit at the grocery store. Now she was on my porch at dawn, shivering. I stepped back. "Come in." She didn't move. "Nat?" Her eyes lifted to mine. That was the problem with Natalie. Even wrecked, even tired, even barefoot on my porch, she still had this way of looking at me like I was the only solid thing in the weather. And I hated how much I wanted to be. "I walked here," she said. "You live 2 miles away." "I know. It's 38 degrees." "I also know that." I glanced at her feet again. "You walked 2 miles barefoot?" "I started in heels. The heels betrayed me." Despite everything, my mouth twitched. She pointed one shoe at me. "Don't." "I'm not. You are internally." "I have never been more respectful in my life." A tiny sound escaped her. Not quite a laugh. More like the memory of one. That little sound did something dangerous to me. I reached for her hand, not dramatically, not like some hero in a movie, just because she looked cold and I couldn't stand another second of her standing there like she didn't know whether she was allowed in my life. Her fingers were freezing. When I wrapped my hand around hers, she closed her eyes. Not for long. Just long enough to make my chest tighten. "Come inside," I said softly. This time she did. My living room was dim and quiet with the gray early light coming through the blinds. She stood near the couch like she had forgotten what furniture was for. I shut the door and grabbed the throw blanket from the armchair. When I draped it around her shoulders, my knuckles brushed the bare skin at the back of her neck. She inhaled. So did I. There are moments in a friendship where the room gets too honest, where your body says what your mouth has spent years denying. I stepped back because I was a decent man, or at least I was trying very hard to be one. "Coffee?" I asked. She shook her head. "Tea?" Another shake. "Emergency waffles?" That got her. One corner of her mouth moved. "You still have emergency waffles?" I am a single man with a toaster and abandonment issues. She looked at me then, really looked, and something in her face cracked. "Danny." Nobody called me Danny except her. Not since college. Not since the night we got snowed into the library during finals and shared vending machine pretzels for dinner. Not since the night she cried on my shoulder because her mother was sick. Not since the afternoon she tried on wedding veils and asked me if she looked happy enough. I had spent years surviving that name. "What happened?" I asked. She sat on the edge of my couch, blanket around her, shoes at her feet like evidence. I sat beside her, leaving a careful few inches between us. She noticed the space. Of course she did. Natalie noticed everything. The chip in my favorite mug, the songs I skipped, the exact moment I got quiet in a crowded room. She had always seen too much except the one thing I had hidden best. I went on a date last night, she said. I kept my face steady. With the accountant? Trevor. Right, spreadsheet Trevor. You called him that before you met him. I have instincts. He took me to this wine bar downtown, the kind with tiny plates and servers who look disappointed in your shoes. I glanced at her bare feet. She pulled them under the blanket. Don't start. Wouldn't dream of it. Her smile vanished. At first he was charming, she said. The normal kind, asked about my work, complimented my dress, told me I looked great for someone recently divorced. I winced. That sentence should be illegal. It got worse. My jaw tightened, but I stayed quiet. She stared at her hands. Halfway through dinner, he asked if my divorce was emotionally messy or financially messy, like he was shopping by category. Natalie. And when I didn't answer fast enough, he laughed and said he just didn't want to get involved with a woman who needed a therapist more than a boyfriend. I felt heat climb up my neck. She kept going, voice thin. Then his friends showed up. He invited them to sit with us. I think he wanted an audience. He told them I was freshly single and still learning how to be fun again. I stood before I realized I had moved. Natalie looked up. Don't. I'm not going anywhere. You have the face. What face? The face where you imagine calmly committing murder with excellent manners. I exhaled hard. She was right, which was annoying. I sat back down, closer this time. My knee brushed hers beneath the blanket and neither of us moved away. What did you do? I asked. I smiled. That hurt worse than if she'd said she cried. She swallowed. I smiled because I didn't want to be difficult, because I spent 8 years being told I was too sensitive, too serious, too needy. So I sat there and let a man who didn't know me make me feel small in front of strangers. Her eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. I left after dessert, she whispered. He offered to drive me home. I said no. I went outside and I just couldn't move. I stood there on the sidewalk thinking, this is what I'm doing now? Auditioning for men who think kindness is extra credit? I wanted to touch her face. I wanted to pull her into me and tell her every man who had ever made her feel difficult had been too small for the job. Instead, I said, you should have called me. She looked at me with a tenderness that almost knocked the air out of me. I know. I would have come. I know. At midnight, 2 in the morning, during a cabinet emergency, Danny. The way she said it stopped me. She reached across the inches between us and took my hand. Not like she was cold this time, like she was choosing it. I almost did call you, she said. I had your name on my screen for 10 minutes. My thumb moved over her knuckle before I could stop it. What stopped you? She looked down at our hands. The morning light had started to brighten the room, soft and silver. Her dress was wrinkled. Her hair was coming loose from its pins. She looked exhausted and beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with romance novels and everything to do with truth. I realized something awful, she said. About Trevor? No. Her fingers tightened around mine. About me. I waited. She pulled in a breath that shook. All night, I kept thinking about every man I tried to love. Ryan. The dates after him. Even the decent ones. And I finally understood what I was doing. Her eyes met mine. I was looking for you in all of them. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Natalie's words sat between us, impossible and alive. I was looking for you in all of them. I had imagined her saying something like that more times than I respected myself enough to admit. In traffic. In the shower. At her wedding reception while I watched her first dance with another man and told myself to be grateful she was smiling. But fantasies are clean. They don't arrive barefoot at dawn with shaking hands and mascara under one eye. Real life looked at me like it might break if I touched it wrong. Natalie, I said carefully. She flinched at my tone and started to pull her hand away. I held on, not tightly, just enough to tell her I wasn't leaving. Don't do that, she whispered. Do what? Say my name like you're about to be noble. I almost laughed, but her eyes were too wet. I hate when you get noble, she said. You make that face like you're going to sacrifice yourself for everyone's emotional well-being. That is just my face before coffee. No, it's your, I will now pretend I don't want something, because wanting it might complicate things face. I stared at her. She stared back. Then, despite everything I said, you have cataloged my faces? I've had 15 years and a front row seat. That's unsettling. That's friendship. It sounds like surveillance. A real laugh broke out of her then, small but bright, and it hit me with such force I had to look down at our joined hands. Her thumb was resting against my pulse. I wondered if she could feel it losing its mind. She sobered. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have come here and dropped that on you. I'm glad you came. But it's not fair, you're my safe place, and I don't want to turn you into another thing I ruin. The words were quiet, but they cut. I shifted closer on the couch. This time, I didn't leave space. Our knees pressed together under the blanket. Her shoulder brushed mine. You didn't ruin anything, I said. You don't know that. Yes, I do. She looked at me, doubtful and tired. So I did the one thing I had avoided for years. I stopped being careful. Nat, I have been in love with you since I was 24. Her entire body went still. The coffee maker clicked in the kitchen like it was also shocked. I swallowed. Possibly 23, but I was an idiot then, so the records are unreliable. Her lips parted. I never told you because you were happy, or I thought you were. Then you were engaged, then married, then trying to survive the end of that marriage. There was never a time when telling you didn't feel like handing you a burden. A burden? Her voice cracked. Danny, I didn't want you to feel responsible for me. And what about you? She asked. Did you ever think maybe I was responsible for missing what was right in front of me? That's not noble face. I closed my mouth. She wiped at one cheek with the heel of her hand and let out a shaky breath. I used to compare everyone to you and tell myself that was normal, that best friends were supposed to be the standard. That sounds reasonable. It was not reasonable, Daniel. You used my full name. I'm in trouble. You are if you keep making jokes because you're scared. That shut me up again. She knew me too well. She always had. I looked at her hand in mine at the tiny scar near her wrist from when we tried to assemble a bookshelf in my old apartment, and the bookshelf won. I remembered her on my kitchen floor eating takeout from the carton, her hair piled on top of her head, telling me she didn't believe in soulmates, but she did believe in people who knew your tie order. I remembered wanting to kiss her then. I remembered not doing it. I am scared, I admitted. Her gaze softened. I'm scared because you're exhausted and hurt, I said, and because you had an awful night, and because if I kiss you right now, I'm not going to be able to pretend it's only comfort. Her breath caught. There. The room changed. It wasn't just confession anymore, it was awareness. Her eyes dropped to my mouth and lifted again. The blanket had slipped from one shoulder, revealing the thin strap of her dress and the faint goosebumps along her skin. I wanted to cover her up. I wanted to kiss every inch the cold had touched. Both instincts battled it out while I sat there, like a man trying not to combust on a beige couch. Natalie leaned closer. Not much, just enough. What if I don't want you to pretend? She asked. My chest tightened. Nat. No noble face, she warned, but her voice trembled. I lifted my free hand slowly, giving her every chance to move away. She didn't. When my fingers touched her cheek, her eyes fluttered shut and she turned into my palm like she had been waiting years to rest there. I nearly broke. You're freezing, I murmured. I walked 2 miles. Barefoot. The shoes betrayed me. We covered this. I'm going to make waffles. Her eyes opened. That is not what I expected you to say. If I kiss you before feeding you, your blood sugar will make all your decisions. My blood sugar is very romantic. Your blood sugar once cried during a phone commercial. That baby was calling his grandmother. I smiled despite myself. She did too. And just like that, the terrifying edge of the moment softened into something even more dangerous. Us. I stood and offered her my hand. She took it, blanket dragging behind her like a queen who had survived battle and lost patience with formal wear. In the kitchen, I put waffles in the toaster and handed her one of my hoodies from the laundry basket by the back door. Is this clean? She asked. Clean adjacent. Tempting. You can keep shivering in the revenge dress if you prefer. She looked down at herself. This dress deserves better than Trevor. That dress deserves a national apology. She smiled, then turned around. Unzip me? My brain stopped functioning. She glanced over her shoulder. Daniel. Right, yes, zipper. I am an adult man familiar with basic mechanics. Are you? No. She laughed softly. I stepped behind her. The zipper was small, caught halfway down her back. My fingers brushed the warm skin between her shoulder blades, and she went quiet. So did I. Slowly, carefully, I eased it down just far enough for her to slip the hoodie over the dress. But before I stepped back, she reached behind her and caught my hand. For a few seconds, we stood like that in my kitchen, my chest inches from her back, the toaster ticking, dawn spilling pale gold over the countertops. She turned, still holding my hand. The hoodie swallowed her. Her hair was loose now, falling around her face. She looked younger, softer. Mine was the first word that came to me, and I hated myself for thinking it before I had earned it. I don't want to be your rebound, I said. You're not. I don't want to be your panic. You're not. I don't want to be the man you choose because another one humiliated you. Her eyes held mine. You're the man I walked to after he did, she said. There's a difference. The toaster popped. Neither of us moved. Then Natalie stepped closer, rose onto her toes, and kissed the corner of my mouth. Not my cheek, not quite my lips. A promise with plausible deniability. When she lowered herself back down, her face was flushed. There, she whispered. Now make me waffles before you start thinking too hard. I touched the place she had kissed. Too late. I was already thinking forever. We ate waffles at my kitchen table while the sun came up. Not at opposite ends like civilized adults with complicated feelings, side by side. Natalie had one knee tucked under her, my hoodie hanging past her hands, her hair a soft mess around her face. I put peanut butter on my waffles because I am a man of taste and structural integrity. She watched in horror. That is a crime, she said. It's protein. It's paste. You once put powdered sugar on scrambled eggs? I was 6. You told me this last year like it was a fond memory. She pointed her fork at me. Do not use my vulnerability against me. I would never. You absolutely would. I grinned, and she rolled her eyes, but she was smiling now. A tired smile, a bruised smile, but real. Every few minutes, I caught her looking at me like she was trying to relearn my face from a new angle. It made me clumsy. I dropped my fork, twice. The second time, she laughed and reached under the table at the same moment I did. Our hands collided. We both froze there, bent close, faces inches apart. Hi, she whispered. I swallowed. Hi. Her gaze slipped to my mouth again. The air in the room went warm and thin. I could have kissed her under that table like a teenager hiding from the world. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. Instead, I sat up too fast and knocked my head on the edge. Ow. Natalie covered her mouth, eyes wide. Are you okay? Perfect. Very seductive. Exactly how I planned that. She burst out laughing. And then she was touching my hair, leaning in to inspect the damage, her fingers gentle against my scalp. You idiot. I prefer brave casualty of restraint. You don't have to restrain everything. Her voice changed on the last word. I looked at her. Her hand was still in my hair. Her thumb brushed my temple once, slowly, like she was testing whether she was allowed to touch me that way. I caught her wrist and kissed the inside of it. Her laughter vanished. Natalie, I said, my mouth still close to her skin, if we do this, I need us to do it sober. Not just alcohol sober, life sober. She nodded, but her eyes were shining. I need you to sleep, I continued. I need you to wake up and still want this when the humiliation from last night isn't burning so hot. I will. I need you to know I'm not going to be casual with you. Her breath trembled. I don't know how, I admitted. Not with you. She pulled her wrist gently from my hand, then cupped my face with both of hers. I don't want casual, she said. I've had casual attention, convenient affection, men who liked the idea of me until I needed something real. Her thumb moved over my cheek. I want the man who knows I hate cilantro and love rainy Saturdays. I want the man who saved every terrible birthday card I ever sent him. I want you. My heart had been quiet for years out of discipline. Now it was loud enough to drown out every cautious thought I had left. I leaned in. So did she. Our first real kiss was soft, almost careful. Her lips met mine with a question in them, and I answered by sliding one hand into her hair and the other around her waist. She made a tiny sound against my mouth, and that sound destroyed whatever was left of my self-control. I kissed her deeper. She shifted closer until her knee pressed against my thigh, and her hands curled in my shirt. The taste of syrup and coffee and Natalie, familiar and impossible, hit me so hard I had to pull back just to breathe. She stayed close, forehead against mine. Was that life sober enough? She asked. I laughed, rough and quiet. Ask me again after you've slept. I'm going to ask you every day. You are? Probably twice on weekends? I brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. Good. Her phone buzzed on the table. We both looked at it. The screen lit up with a name. Ryan, her ex-husband. The room didn't go cold exactly, but something old passed over her face. A reflex. The old Natalie who braced before answering, who prepared to soften herself so a man wouldn't be inconvenienced by her feelings. I hated that reflex more than I hated the name on the screen. She reached for the phone, then stopped. You don't have to answer, I said. I know. It buzzed again. Ryan, need to talk. Heard you're dating already. Classy. Natalie stared at the message. Her mouth tightened, but this time she didn't shrink. Another message appeared. Ryan. Don't embarrass yourself, Nat. I felt my hand curl into a fist under the table. She saw it and put her palm over my knuckles. No murder face, she said. I'm developing a wide variety of faces today. I noticed. Do you want me to block him? She shook her head. No, I'll do it. I watched as she opened the contact, blocked the number, and set the phone face down. Then she looked at me. I would have spent 20 minutes crafting the perfect reply 6 months ago, she said. Something calm, something mature. Something that proved I wasn't crazy. You were never crazy. I know that now. She smiled a little. I think. You'll know it more tomorrow. And the day after? I can be very repetitive. I remember. You once explained grout colors for 40 minutes. That was important. It was beige, Danny. There are undertones. She laughed again, and the last of Ryan's shadows seemed to lift from her shoulders. I reached for her hand. Come on. Where? You're sleeping. Her eyebrows rose. That sounds forward. On the couch. Less forward. With a blanket. Barely scandalous. And I will be in the armchair, guarding your honor and possibly icing my head? She stood, still holding my hand. What if I don't want you in the armchair? My pulse kicked. I turned back slowly. She looked nervous now, but not uncertain. I'm not asking for anything I shouldn't, She swallowed. I don't want to wake up and think I dreamed this. Could you stay close? There it was again. Not rescue, not safety as a substitute for love. A request, a reaching, a choice. Yeah, I said softly. I can stay close. We ended up on the couch, her curled against my side beneath the blanket, my arm around her shoulders. Nothing rushed, nothing taken. Just her cheek over my heart and her fingers resting at my ribs like she was learning the rhythm. After a few minutes, her breathing slowed. Danny, she murmured. Yeah? When I wake up, don't be noble. I pressed a kiss to her hair. When you wake up, I whispered, I'm taking you on a real date. Her hand tightened on my shirt. Good, she said. Then she fell asleep in my arms, and I sat there in the morning light, finally holding the woman I had loved for a decade, terrified and grateful, and already planning waffles that didn't involve peanut butter. Natalie slept for 5 hours. I know because I spent most of them trapped beneath her, like a man who had never been happier to lose circulation in his left arm. At some point, my phone buzzed with work emails. The coffee maker clicked off. A delivery truck groaned past the house. Natalie didn't stir. She slept like someone who had been carrying armor for years and finally set it down. When she woke, her cheek was still against my chest. For a second, she didn't move. Then her fingers tightened in my shirt. "Tell me I didn't dream the waffles," she mumbled. "You didn't dream the waffles. Tell me I didn't kiss you. You definitely kissed me." She lifted her head. Her hair was wild on one side and there was a faint crease from my t-shirt across her cheek. "Was it good?" she asked. I pretended to consider. Her eyes narrowed. "Daniel, it was terrible. I may need you to try again so I can confirm." She smiled, sleepy and soft, then leaned up and kissed me. This one was different from the first. Less careful, less startled. A morning after kiss, even though we hadn't had that kind of night. Her mouth moved over mine like she remembered and wanted to remember more. I slid my hand to her waist and she made that small sound again, the one that turned my brain into static. When she pulled back, her cheeks were pink. "Confirmed," she whispered. "I'll need more data." She laughed and dropped her forehead to my shoulder. "You're ridiculous. And yet you walked 2 miles to get here. Barefoot, don't forget the suffering. I could never." Then she went quiet. I felt it before I saw it. The shift in her body, the old fear waking up. "What if this ruins us?" she asked. There it was. The question I had asked myself for years. I brushed my thumb along the crease on her cheek. "It will change us." "That's not the same answer." "No, it's the honest one." She looked up. "I can't promise we won't stumble," I said. "I can't promise I won't overthink or you won't panic. But I can promise I won't punish you for being afraid." Her eyes glistened. "And I need something from you," I added. "What?" "If you start looking for reasons to run, tell me before you do." She swallowed. "I can do that." "Good. What do you need if you get scared?" I smiled faintly. "For you to call me out on my noble face." "That I can definitely do." We stayed like that until the afternoon light moved across the floor. Then Natalie showered in my bathroom while I made grilled cheese because romance apparently was mostly bread and emotional exposure. When she came out wearing my hoodie over her dress again, damp hair combed back, I forgot the spatula in my hand. She noticed. "You're staring." "Yes. No defense. I've decided to lean into honesty." Her smile turned shy, and that shy smile hit me harder than the black dress ever could. After we ate, I drove her home so she could change for our date. A real date, not a rescue mission, not post-divorce triage. A date. I waited on her couch while she got ready, surrounded by boxes she hadn't unpacked since moving into the apartment. It was a nice place, bright and clean, but temporary in the way the heartbreak makes everything temporary. A lamp without a shade, books stacked on the floor, one framed photo face down on the shelf. When she came out, she wore jeans, ankle boots, and a green sweater that made her eyes look unfair. I stood too fast. She smiled. "Good?" I cleared my throat. I am suddenly pro-green. "Smooth. I'm recovering from emotional whiplash." She crossed the room and adjusted the collar of my jacket. Her fingers lingered there. "You look handsome," she said. I had been complimented before. Probably, at some point. But hearing it from Natalie while she stood close enough for me to smell her shampoo made me feel like a teenager with a learner's permit. "Thank you," I said, because I was a grown man and not entirely useless. Her phone lit up on the counter. Unknown number. We both saw it. She didn't reach for it. A voicemail appeared a moment later. Then a text. Unknown. Blocking me is childish. We still need to discuss the storage unit. Ryan. Natalie's mouth tightened, but she didn't fold. "I forgot he still has some of my things," she said. "Old paintings, winter coats, my grandmother's dishes. We can deal with that tomorrow." She looked at me, and I knew what she was thinking. That we had stepped into something new and already her past was knocking at the door. I took her hand. Hey, he doesn't get our first date. Our first date, she repeated. Unless you object. No. Her fingers threaded through mine. I like the sound of it. Then tonight, he's a storage unit, nothing more. She laughed softly. That might be the least romantic sentence anyone has ever said before a date. I can recover. Can you? I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. Natalie Brooks, will you go eat pasta with me and judge strangers' first date body language from a respectful distance? Her eyes warmed. Yes. And after that, will you let me walk you to your door like I have manners? Maybe. Maybe? I haven't decided if I'm inviting you in. My pulse stumbled. She grinned. Relax, noble face. That was not noble. That was panic with a side of hope. Her laughter followed us all the way to the car. Dinner was at a little Italian place we'd been to a dozen times as friends. But that night, everything was different. The candle between us. The way her foot bumped mine under the table and stayed there. The way she stole a bite of my pasta without asking, then offered me hers like we'd been doing this forever. Halfway through dessert, she reached across the table and took my hand. I'm still scared, she said. Me too. But not enough to stop. I rubbed my thumb over hers. Good. She looked down at our hands. I spent so long mistaking anxiety for chemistry. With you, I feel nervous, but I also feel quiet inside. That sounds less sexy than I hoped. She smiled. It's very sexy. Quiet inside is sexy? When you've lived with chaos? Yes. The candlelight moved over her face, and for a second, I saw all the versions of her I had loved. College Natalie with ink on her fingers, married Natalie pretending she was fine, porch at dawn, Natalie brave enough to tell the truth. And now this one, the woman choosing me. After dinner, I walked her to her apartment door. She turned to face me, keys in hand. So, she said, so, are you going to kiss me goodnight? I was planning to. Planning? I had a whole strategy. Was it cabinet-related? Only structurally. She laughed and I stepped closer, backing her gently against the door, not trapping, asking. Her eyes darkened and she nodded once. I kissed her slowly. Her arms slid around my neck. Mine settled at her waist. The kiss deepened, warm and unhurried, and the world narrowed to her breath. Her hands, the small tremble that passed through her when I whispered her name. When we broke apart, she didn't let go. Come in for tea, she said. Tea? She smiled against my mouth. And maybe more data. I was about to answer when footsteps sounded on the stairwell behind me. Natalie's body stiffened. I turned. Ryan stood halfway up the stairs holding a cardboard box, his smile thin. Well, he said, isn't this cozy? Natalie's hand found mine. This time she didn't hide behind me. She stepped beside me, fingers locked with mine, and said, Yes, it is. Ryan's eyes dropped to our joined hands. Something ugly flickered across his face, but Natalie didn't let go of me. If anything, she held tighter. For years, I had imagined what I would say to him, if I ever got the chance. Speeches, accusations, perfectly worded takedowns that would make him understand what he'd done to her. But standing there with Natalie beside me instead of behind me, I realized she didn't need me to win anything. She just needed me to stand with her while she chose herself. Ryan lifted the cardboard box. Brought some of your stuff. At 10 at night? Natalie asked. I was in the neighborhood. You live 20 minutes away. His smile tightened. Still dramatic, I see. I felt anger rise, but Natalie squeezed my hand once. A signal, not yet, not yours. Hers. She stepped forward, calm but pale. Leave the box by the door. Tomorrow I'll send you a list of what's still in the storage unit. We'll arrange a time for me to pick it up with someone present. Ryan glanced at me. Someone like him? Someone like whoever I choose. That landed. His jaw worked. You know, this is fast, even for you. Natalie flinched barely. I saw it because I knew her. Then she straightened. No, she said. What was fast was me learning how peaceful my life got when you weren't in it. Silence filled the stairwell. Ryan looked like he wanted to laugh but couldn't quite manage it. He set the box down harder than necessary. "You'll regret this," he said. Natalie's voice stayed steady. "I already regret too much, not this." He looked between us one more time, then turned and walked down the stairs. We listened until the front door of the building opened and shut. Only then did Natalie's breath shake. I turned to her. "Hey, I'm okay." "I know." Her eyes searched mine, almost surprised. I smiled faintly. "I'm learning." She laughed, but tears slipped down her cheeks. I wiped one away with my thumb. "You were incredible." I was terrified. "Still incredible." She looked at the box, then at me. "I don't want him in my apartment tonight." "Then he doesn't come in, neither does the box. It has my grandmother's serving bowl in it." "Your grandmother would understand boundaries." That got me a watery smile. "She would have liked you," Natalie said. "She had good taste." "She once dated a jazz drummer and a tax attorney in the same month." "Complex taste." "Excellent taste." I leaned closer. "Then I'm honored." She rose onto her toes and kissed me, right there in the hallway, with Ryan's box sitting beside the door like the last pathetic offering from a life she was done apologizing for. This kiss wasn't about panic or comfort. It was choice. Her hands held my face, mine settled at her waist. She kissed me like she had been walking toward this moment for years and had finally stopped taking wrong turns. When we pulled apart, she whispered, "Come in." "Are we still pretending this is about tea?" She smiled. "There will be tea. And? And you can sit on my couch and tell me I'm brave until I believe it." I brushed my nose against hers. "That may take all night." "Good." So I went in. We did make tea. We also ignored it until it went cold. We sat on her couch with her feet tucked under my thigh, talking in low voices about everything we were afraid of. She admitted she worried she'd mistake steadiness for boredom once the newness faded. I admitted I worried I'd love her so much I'd forget to let her breathe. She looked at me then, serious and soft. "Don't love me like I'm fragile." I took her hand and pressed it over my heart. "Then don't run from me like I'm temporary." Her fingers curled in my shirt. "Deal." Much later at her door, I kissed her goodnight again. Slowly, thoroughly, with enough restraint to make us both proud and enough heat to make leaving physically painful. "Tomorrow?" she asked. "Breakfast. No peanut butter on waffles." I make no promises. Then this relationship is already in trouble. "Relationship?" I repeated. She went still, realizing what she'd said. I didn't let her retreat. I smiled. I liked the sound of it. Her whole face changed, not fixed, not magically healed, but lit from inside. "Me too," she whispered. By the following spring, Natalie had a key to my blue house with the leaning porch. She claimed it was only practical because I kept better coffee, but she also brought over plants, 3 throw pillows, half her books, and a mug that said emotionally available-ish. Ryan became logistics, then silence. She got her grandmother's dishes back. She sold the dress from that terrible date online and used the money to buy hiking boots, which she called shoes that understand loyalty. We learned each other as more than friends. Some parts were easy: Sunday markets, pasta nights, her cold feet under my legs during movies, the way she kissed me in the kitchen whenever the toaster popped like it had become a private bell. Some parts were harder. Sometimes she got quiet when conflict felt too sharp. Sometimes I tried to solve when she only needed me to listen. Once, after our first real argument, she stood at my front door with tears in her eyes and said, "I'm telling you before I run." So I opened the door wider, and she came in. A year after that morning, Natalie woke me at 6 a.m. again. This time, she didn't knock. She let herself in, climbed into my bed wearing one of my old t-shirts, and pressed her cold nose to my neck. "Wake up," she whispered. I groaned. "If the shoes betrayed you again, I'm suing." She laughed against my skin. "No, I wanted to see the sunrise." "You hate mornings. I like this one." So we wrapped ourselves in a blanket and went out to the leaning porch. Coffee steaming between our hands, the sky turning pink over the quiet street. Natalie leaned into my side. On her finger was a simple silver ring. Not an engagement ring yet, Not a promise we had rushed into, but one I'd given her the night before because she told me she wanted something that meant here, not trapped. Here with me. She turned her face up toward mine. Do you ever think about that morning? All the time. I was such a mess. I kissed her temple. You were honest. I was barefoot. Also memorable. She smiled, then took my hand and tucked it beneath the blanket against her heart. The sunrise spilled gold across the porch, across her face, across the woman who had once arrived broken at my door, and somehow made my whole life begin. And this time, when she whispered, I was looking for you, I could answer her without fear. I was right here. What would you have done if your newly divorced best friend showed up at your door at 6 a.m. and confessed she'd been looking for you and everyone else? Have you ever experienced something similar? Tell your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.